Welcome, it's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are in Sacramento today, and we are joined by Fiona Ma. She is now a member of the Board of Equalization in our great state. Welcome back to Sacramento.
Thank you, Brad.
You had been in the legislature for 6 years, took a couple years off. How is it to be back?
I am getting adjusted.
Right.
It's only been a couple of weeks, and I forgot the pace up here. You know, everyone's, running around trying to get their bill ideas in, and so we're kind of in the mix and all that.
But you're now part of the executive branch, a constitutional officer representing 1/4 of the state. You're not in the same building as the legislature. You're off-site.
Yes.
So how is that? Is it slower, faster?
I don't have a caucus.
Right.
We don't have a speaker, and so we basically are on our own, and it's a little bit more independent. It's a little slower pace if you want it to be slower. So I'm kind of adjusting to the speed for sure.
So give us a sense of what you'll be doing as a member of the BOE.
Yes, so the BOE has been in existence since 1879, right? The state formed in 1850, and we had 58 independently elected assessors, and not all of them were assessing, collecting, and remitting equally. So that's where the equalization comes in. So
that's the title.
That's the title.
Right.
Everyone always says, what are you equalizing? So 1879, voters passed it. They created this tax board. It's the only elected tax board in the country. And initially it was, created to oversee the assessors. Since then, we now collect and administer about 30 different taxes, sales and use tax being the biggest. Last year we collected about $52.5 billion, which represents almost 40% of the state's revenues. So a lot of money comes through the agency.
As a member of the board, are you also on the franchise tax board?
Only the chair of the BOE is on the franchise tax board.
But you're also a member of many different commissions, and you don't have to get wrapped into all of that. You can focus on your job.
Exactly. The controller, I think, is on 80 different commissions and boards. No, this is it. We are just on this board.
Now, as a citizen of the California state, how do we interact with the BOE? When will we interact with the BOE?
Well, if you open up a business and you are going to sell something that requires a sales tax, usually that is the first step, right? You sign up and you become a business registrant. We have about 800,000 permittees in the state.
Literally.
Yes. And then if you have to pay one of the specialty taxes, then that's another way. Like the timber industry pays a timber tax, electronic recycling, tobacco tax, alcohol tax. So then there's another group that would interact with the board.
It would seem to me that as a member of this board, you could have a tremendous influence in trying to what many people call streamline government. You've mentioned many taxes, and I'm not necessarily saying they're good or bad, but there's the franchise tax board and the BOE and the controller and the treasurer and so many different types of agencies that seem to a layperson to be handling similar items, similar subjects. What do you think about that whole notion?
I think there is some cooperation between the different agencies in terms of information sharing.
Right.
But the agencies are very different in terms of, what kind of income or taxes they are collecting. For us, yes, I am interested in streamlining some of the processes. Some of them are outdated.
Yes.
And of course, to change it, you have to go to the legislature, and sometimes it requires 2/3, but I was in the legislature and, very comfortable there. So,
I would hope so. You were Speaker Pro Tem, no?
I was Speaker Pro Tem.
Number 2 in the Assembly.
Got 60 bills signed by 2 governors in 6 years.
I like it. Let's talk about your swearing in, because in a lot of ways, what a special day that must have been. You grew up in San Francisco. Your parents immigrated to this country. They both were at the swearing in, which must have been incredibly emotional.
Yes.
Were a supervisor in San Francisco, then to the Assembly. And now, Madam Fiona Ma, you represent 1/4 of the largest state in the Union. You represent almost 10 million people.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the daughter of immigrants.
I am.
This is just, it's a success story that we write about and read about But it's you.
Yeah, you know, actually, I was born and raised in New York.
Oh, okay.
And came over after undergrad.
Okay, so thanks for that correction. Yes.
And never thought, never got involved in politics growing up, never ran for office. I became an accountant because I was good at math.
Right.
And, somewhere along the line, left one of the big six accounting firms and became president of a small business association. And that was the first time I got engaged with government.
But your parents did come to this country?
They did. They were both born in China, and they both immigrated, met in Canada, got married in New York, and that's where they decided to raise us.
So think about that. I mean, they came, I assume, were they fleeing kind of the communists? I mean,
yes. They both left right before 1949.
So think about that. I mean, they fled what they saw was going to be an oppressive government, and now their daughter, not 2 or 3 generations later, their daughter has been elected to represent 10 million Californians. It's almost hard to fathom.
I think they are very, very proud now.
Right.
Running for the Board of Supervisors, the Assembly, they kind of didn't get it. And they're like, why are you doing this versus being, a partner of a major firm?
Right.
But now it's all coming full circle. Like, this is a tax board. I'm using my tax experience.
It's interesting.
I was on the Assessment Appeals Board, and we're, working with the assessors. And so I think everything happened in the last 20 years to get me right here. And my parents are very proud now.
So now that you're here, we talk about reform in terms of kind of the structure of government. There's a lot of talk about reforming taxes and the tax code. Your friend, I don't know if you overlap with Bob Hertzberg. He's in the California Senate. He's making a lot of noise about tax reform. And I want to get a sense from you, what role would you play in that debate? I spoke with Comptroller Betty Yee, asked her a similar question, because you're not part of the legislature, but look, I mean, you're the elected tax expert. How does the BOE play a role in that, formally, informally? Because my sense is that this is the year, if Bob Hertzberg has anything to say about it, and we all know he'll make sure of that we actually could see some bona fide tax reform.
I totally agree, and we've been talking about it, for the last, when I was on the in the legislature. But we went through the worst recession, and it wasn't really a good time to talk about all these big reforms. Bob Hertzberg certainly has brought a lot of attention to tax reform. I am the chair of the legislative committee for the BOE, and so therefore
so you are the person.
Yes, I am going to be very involved. I'm going around to meet everyone on the Rev and Tax Committee first, but then, trying to figure out how I can be helpful, how we can provide data if members need, other support.
And one proposal that's already come out of Mr. Hertzberg, and we've heard this before as well, is this notion of broadening the sales tax base, but possibly then lowering the sales tax. We may have talked about this a couple of years ago. It's a proposal that's floated around. What's your thought, if you've taken a position at all on this?
I haven't taken an official opinion, but position, but many people have asked about that. So it is very appealing if you are going to lower the sales tax and institute a broader tax on services. The problem is, if you exempt one service, then it opens up the door to others, So you kind of have to have a big, broad stroke and get everybody's buy-in. Otherwise,
and I think
constituents pitted against each other.
When I think about services, you often hear accountants, of which you are, lawyers, doctors, and those bills. I mean, an accounting bill's a few $1,000s, and so all of a sudden you tack on, but would it be 5%, or that's the key?
And so the devil's in the detail, So, obviously, the revenue projections are going to come into play. Obviously, you can't really take away a tax without replacing the income, and that has to be part of the discussion.
Is the goal to smooth taxes, increase taxes, lower taxes?
It's to smooth the income generation, Because if you have a good tax year, the stock market's up, real estate is up, Obviously, you're going to have more tax revenues, and then during a recession, then all of a sudden, everyone's scrambling with deficits.
Her name is Fiona Ma. She is now a member of the Board of Equalization in the great state of California. I'm Brad Pomerance, California Edition.